Intelligence isn't just about having a high IQ or being good at math. It's actually a force that shapes how others see you, react to you, and sometimes even try to suppress you. And society has always had this strange way of pushing back against those who think differently or see patterns others don't notice. Think about what happened to Alan Turing. He was brilliant enough to crack Nazi codes and save countless lives during World War II, but society still rejected him. Or consider Katherine Johnson, whose mathematical genius helped NASA reach the stars, yet she faced constant resistance and skepticism. These weren't just random cases, they were part of a pattern that Jung noticed in his psychological practice. Without understanding this dynamic, you'll keep hitting invisible walls in your career and relationship. You might start hiding your true thoughts and insights, dulling your natural curiosity to fit in. And worst of all, you could end up believing there's something wrong with you for seeing what others don't. Jung discovered this pattern while treating his most intelligent patients. They kept coming to him with the same story, feeling isolated, misunderstood, and somehow wrong for being able to grasp complex ideas quickly. These weren't people bragging about their intelligence. These were often successful professionals who felt they had to dumb themselves down just to be accepted at work or in social situations. This wasn't just their imagination. Jung found evidence of this pattern stretching back through history, from Hypatia being murdered for her knowledge in ancient Alexandria to Galileo being forced to deny his scientific discoveries. Today, I'm going to explore why society pushes back against intelligence through the lens of Carl Jung's work on the collective unconscious. Jung wasn't just any psychologist. He was someone who spent years diving deep into why groups of people react with such hostility to those who think differently. While working at the Burg Hölzli psychiatric hospital in Switzerland, Jung noticed something fascinating. His most intelligent patients weren't struggling because of their intelligence itself. They were struggling because of how others reacted to it. A pattern started emerging in his case studies. What Jung discovered was shocking. Intelligence triggers a kind of primitive fear in groups, not because smart people are threatening, but because they remind others of their own unused potential. It's like holding up a mirror that shows people all the thinking and understanding they could have developed but didn't. Think about being in a room where someone keeps pointing out patterns and connections that seem obvious to them, but that you've never noticed. That slightly uncomfortable feeling? That's what Jung was talking about. Now imagine that feeling multiplied across an entire society. Jung documented this in his personal journals, which were later published as the Red Book. He found that this wasn't just a modern problem. Throughout history, societies have had this same reactive pattern, from ancient Greek philosophers being exiled to medieval scholars being branded as heretic. Society's pushback against intelligence shows up in ways you might recognize, but never connected before. When Jung looked at his patients' experiences, he found three main patterns that kept repeating. First, there's what Jung called forced simplification. Think about Elon Musk in his early days at PayPal. His colleagues would get frustrated when he'd point out complex problems they hadn't considered. They didn't just disagree. They actively tried to shut down these conversations. The same thing happened to Jeff Bezos when he first pitched the idea of Amazon. People didn't just think he was wrong. They felt annoyed by how he kept seeing possibilities they couldn't grasp. But here's where Jung's insight gets really interesting. He noticed that this pushback often comes disguised as practical wisdom. You're overthinking it. That's too complicated. Let's keep it simple. These aren't just casual comments. They're society's immune system trying to fight off new ways of thinking. Jung found a deeper pattern, too. The more intelligent someone was, the more they got labeled as arrogant or out of touch, even when they were being humble. He saw this with Einstein, who was constantly criticized for being too theoretical and disconnected from reality, even though his insights would later revolutionize our understanding of the universe. But the most fascinating part Jung discovered was the hidden psychological mechanism behind all this. When someone displays intelligence, it triggers what Jung called shadow projection. People project their own unused intellectual potential onto the intelligent person and then attack it there. It's like they're trying to kill off the smart part of themselves they never developed. Think about how people reacted to Marie Curie. They didn't just disagree with her research. They actively tried to discredit her, spread rumors about her, and push her out of scientific circles. Jung would say they weren't really attacking Curie. They were attacking the part of themselves that could have been as dedicated to discovery as she was. Throughout history, Jung found a repeating cycle that he called the persecution of the aware. It's like a script that keeps playing out with different actors, but the same plot. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Take what happened to Ignaz Semmelweis in the 1800s. He figured out that doctors needed to wash their hands between patients to prevent deaths. Simple, right? But instead of thanking him, his fellow doctors turned on him. They didn't just ignore his evidence, they actively worked to destroy his reputation. He ended up dying in an asylum, all because he saw something others couldn't or wouldn't see. Or look at Alan Turing again, but through Jung's lens. His intelligence didn't just solve problems, it revealed uncomfortable truths about human thinking itself. His famous Turing test suggested that human intelligence might not be as special as we thought. The backlash wasn't just about his personal life. It was about what his insights meant for everyone's sense of uniqueness. Jung documented how this pattern even shows up in schools. The kid who asks the deep questions often gets labeled as disruptive. The student who finds faster ways to solve problems gets accused of cheating. It's not random. It's part of this ancient pattern of pushing back against those who see more than others. But here's the twist Jung discovered. This rejection actually gets stronger in modern societies, not weaker. Why? Because modern life depends more on intelligence, which makes people more anxious about their own intellectual ability. Look at how Silicon Valley treats its innovators. They're celebrated only after they succeed, but during their early stages, they face intense skepticism and rejection, often from the very people who later claim to have supported them all along. In his private practice, Jung developed specific strategies for his intelligent patients to navigate this social pushback. And these aren't just theoretical ideas, they're practical tools that worked then and still work now. The first key Jung discovered was what he called conscious dimming. Take someone like Bill Gates in Microsoft's early days. He learned to present complex ideas in stages, not all at once. Not because he couldn't see the whole picture, but because he discovered that people need time to catch up to new ways of thinking. He wasn't hiding his intelligence. He was making it accessible. Then there's what Jung called bridge building. Look at Richard Feynman, one of history's greatest physicists. He could think at incredibly complex levels, but he became famous for his ability to explain quantum physics using simple analogies. He'd talk about quantum mechanics using rubber bands and spinning plates. Jung would say Feynman wasn't just teaching, he was building bridges between different levels of understanding. But here's the most powerful tool Jung discovered: using your intelligence to understand the resistance itself. When you get pushback, don't take it personally. Instead, get curious about it. Ada Lovelace did this in the 1800s when she invented computer programming. When people dismissed her work as unfeminine, she didn't fight back directly. Instead, she understood their fear of new technology and used that understanding to explain her ideas better. This isn't about hiding your light. It's about learning to shine it in a way that illuminates rather than blinds. Jung found that his most successful patients weren't the ones who fought against society's resistance. They were the ones who learned to work with it, understanding that every new idea needs time to be absorbed. When you understand how society reacts to intelligence, everything starts to make sense. Those odd reactions you get when you point out something others missed, that uncomfortable silence when you make a connection no one else saw. It's all part of this pattern Jung uncovered. Think about it. People like Steve Jobs, Marie Curie, or even someone like Temple Grandin didn't succeed because they fought against this pattern. They succeeded because they understood it and worked with it. Jobs learned to present revolutionary ideas as natural next steps. Curie persisted in her research despite the skepticism. Grandin used her different way of thinking to solve problems others couldn't even see. But here's what makes Jung's insight so powerful. Once you understand this dynamic, you can stop taking the pushback personally. It's not about you being too smart or others being too slow. It's about a natural tension that's been playing out for thousands of years. Remember, society rejected Socrates' wisdom until they couldn't ignore it anymore. They dismissed Leonardo da Vinci's inventions until they became impossible to deny. The pattern repeats, but understanding it gives you power over it. So let me ask you this. What insights have you been holding back? What connections do you see that you've been afraid to share? Because understanding this pattern isn't just about making your life easier. It's about learning how to share your intelligence in a way that actually helps move humanity forward. Your intelligence isn't a curse, it's a tool. And now that you understand why society pushes back against it, you can use it more effectively than ever before.